Which instrument do you think you'd like to play?
Well, I was kind of thinking, like, how about electric guitar?
Today's episode of Columbus Local features internationally acclaimed rock guitarist, instructor, session musician, and producer, Rob Johnson. Rob, thank you for joining today, man.
Great to be here, Lynn. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, so what was that we were just listening to?
So that was one of my instrumental tracks called Guitar Architecture. It's from one of my solo albums. And it's one that was actually released, one of them that, well, they've all been released over in Japan, and that was probably one of the most popular ones. Maybe got more use and airplay, and the album did pretty good over there in Japan.
Oh, fantastic. And I appreciate your unique style. I mean, it's really cool.
Well, thank you.
So, I'd love to take a dive into your journey, but, if it's okay, I'd first like to point out one of your current musical involvements as guitarist for Columbus, Ohio-based cover band, Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing currently, having fun, playing in Clubber Lang and getting out there and playing live again. It's been a while. I've mainly been doing, recording and being at home and once in a while doing session work, and so it's kind of fun to get out there and play songs again. And we're just doing covers and having fun and putting our own little spin on them and our own personality in the songs.
Yeah, you know what? Beth and I had the opportunity to go to the QFM house band event at out of Marysville.
Yeah, Leon's Garage. That was a great time.
It was a great evening, and it was fun to see you guys play because I hadn't seen you until then, right? But here you guys are, runners up for that event.
Yeah, that was a great night. There was 4 really fantastic bands. Toast and the Thirsty Travelers, Radio City, and we were fortunate enough to be picked to play, and we were just happy to be there and play, and everybody sounded great, and so many great musicians here in Columbus, Ohio, and surrounding areas, and Leon's is a great venue. The stage is awesome, and they're getting everything worked out as far as like the sound and soundproofing now. So it was a lot of fun that night.
Absolutely, and I think Ross Davis gets a lot of credit for all the fine work that he's done to bring some of that along.
Yeah, Ross is great. Yeah, great sound man for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the guys in Clubber Lang, I mean, they're no strangers to the community. It's fun to see you guys get along so well. You're like brothers. You're like the Cult on stage. I mean, from I don't want to compare. Right?
No, I love the Cult.
The cool factor, right? That you guys are oozing of rock.
Well, we try to be cool. Sometimes we can fake it, but yeah. So it all started with John Holman, the drummer, and I. And actually, John's the one that got me off my butt to get out playing again. If it wasn't for him, he's like, hey, we're not doing anything. Why don't we get out there and just have fun and play for our friends and have a good time? So we started jamming, and then we got a hold of, we needed a bass player, and the bass player, Rob Carter, he was in a band called Smokestack Lightning, and at the time, they weren't really, they were kind of on a hiatus, and so he joined us, and then John brought aboard our singer, Seth Held, which Seth's been in a lot of bands over the years, local bands, and we all just started jamming, and our personalities click, and we all get along, which is really important, and we all have fun, which is really important. So we're just having a good time learning and playing cover songs and putting our own spin on it, and getting out there again.
It's fantastic, and the fact that I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember seeing Clubber Lang pop up like in the fall of 2022. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We started. Actually, we didn't really start out playing out until last year, 2022. I think we actually started. I think in May and June, and with not too many shows. Nobody knew who we were, but we eventually started, booking some gigs and got a little traction underneath us, and started by like you said, by fall we were playing a lot more. So now, this year in 2023, we're really getting out there again and playing, and it's been great seeing all our friends and other musicians and having fun, playing tunes.
Oh yeah, playing tunes, man.
Yeah,
and they're good tunes. I love the set list that I heard, that night, and you're on the list definitely for for Beth and I to go see,
awesome.
Over and over.
Megabeth,
yes,
Megabeth, I love it.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And she's got a lot going on.
Yes,
but for you guys to bust out and be a part of the QFM night for the house band, and just flashbacks of your bandmates to the days of Blue Cuda and Photobomb at On the Rocks venue, and at the time I wasn't playing in the local music scene with bands, but I was in the audience. And
awesome.
I recognize these guys, and so they're they got to be fun.
Yeah.
And your association though with this type of a project, right? Cover band, that's new to you.
Yeah, it's new to me. I mean, I've never really I've never really been in a quote cover band before, but I've always kept it open. I mean, I've played in original bands and we've done 2 or 3 covers, and actually one of the bands that I was in for a while that we got a record deal with, Magnitude 9, we some of our bonus tracks for Japan are cover songs. So we did like our second album, they wanted a bonus track, so we didn't have enough originals. We wrote like 10 originals, and so we recorded Flight of Icarus by Iron Maiden, and that actually got airplay over there in Japan. Actually, our first album we did a cover version of Man on the Silver Mountain by Rainbow.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So those are, and Japan always wants a bonus track, and we just said, well, let's just put a spin on a cover. And I think that's where John Homan, the drummer for Clubber Lang, he was in Magnitude 9 with me, and we were also in a band called Saddleback Shark that played a lot here in Columbus. So but yeah, playing in a cover band was something I'd never done. I mean, it was actually, John's had more experience with it, and the other guys in the band, they've always done that on the side, and I was just always more of a songwriter and interested in putting out albums and getting record deals and publishing deals, and I kind of thought, well, I don't know if I would enjoy playing in a cover band, but actually I really do now that I realize I can be myself and play pretty much what's true to the song most of the time, but I can also put my little spin on it and be myself. And so yeah, playing covers has actually been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it, and a lot of my friends, and musicians here in Columbus, there's so many great bands and great cover bands, and they put their own spin and personality on their songs. I thought, well, I'm going to try to do the same, and it's been a blast.
That's fantastic. Yep, and it's a fun show.
Oh, thanks.
Definitely, yeah. Everybody's
gotta have fun. Can't be too serious.
Oozing of coolness.
Serious is boring, right? You gotta have fun. You
guys do, definitely.
Oh,
it
thanks.
Shows. So let's jump into your journey, right? Let's jump into your beginnings. How did you become attached to your obvious passion for guitar?
I would say it all started from my father, my dad, being such an avid music fan, record collector. So he would drag us around all the time to record stores. We'd be dragged down to campus to Sing a Dog Records, to Magnolia Thunder Pussy, to Used Kids, and he would always buy albums, and he would listen to everything from the Beatles to Ozzy to Van Halen, and so in country and everything. My dad listened to everything, but I think when I would hear my dad playing Van Halen or Ozzy, I just was attracted to the sound of guitar, and I thought that'd be cool. I'd really like to play guitar, and so eventually, I told him, Dad, I'd love to play guitar. Can I start learning guitar? And he I remember my first guitar was a crappy Les Paul copy. It was called a Montoya, and we got it. He got it for me because he didn't want to spend $1,000 and get me a nice guitar if I wasn't going to stick with it
for 20 minutes and it sits in the corner.
Yeah, because I played baseball for years before I played guitar, and I dabbled in martial arts and didn't really stick with those two things. But he didn't want to go out and buy me a brand new Fender Strat or Les Paul or something. But so we got a cheap Les Paul at Uncle Sam's pawn shop, and and then my first amp, he took me over to the String Shop, which used to be next to the Newport on High Street, and got me a really small used crate amplifier. So, and then my mom started taking me to guitar lessons at Lang Music, and which I really at that time didn't like, because my first guitar instructor, I can't remember his name because he really didn't do anything for me or inspire me or anything, but the first thing he told me to do was buy a Mel Bay book on the way out of the music store. Buy a Mel Bay book, and we're going to start learning from that. And so I think I only went there for 1 or 2 lessons, and started looking for another teacher, which some of my friends told me about a guitar player named Bob Murnahan, who played in a Columbus, I guess it would be like a jazz fusion trio in the 80s called, I think it's Rager. The drummer was Chad Rager, if I'm pronouncing that right, Rager or Rager. And they were a great jazz fusion band that played in Columbus, and he taught guitar at Sonny's Guitar Shop at the Great Southern Shopping Center. And so I started taking lessons off of Bob Murnahan when I was, 13, 14, and he would start teaching me about theory and the importance of not only how theory works with songs, but he would also teach me like a Van Halen riff or a Zeppelin riff or something to keep me interested. But then he would also make me, say, well, I want you to learn your modes, or I want you to learn your scales, or I want you to learn chords beside your bar chords. So anyway, I took lessons off of him for a while. Then I progressed and I learned on my own, and I was practicing guitar, 18, 12, 16 hours a day all throughout my teenage years. I really didn't have much of a social life during then. I don't think I got my driver's license, like I said, till I was 19 or 20. I had, girlfriends, but no, I didn't want to be serious with any girlfriends. I just was focused on guitar. And so eventually I started teaching people. People came to me for lessons, and I started giving lessons at my house. And then eventually I started teaching guitar lessons at a place called KRA Music in Columbus. And I taught, 60, 70 students a week, 3 or 4 days a week. And that's where it all started, with teaching and learning for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Were you doing any collaboration with folks in town, around that time when you were teaching?
As far as music?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I started, a friend of mine, Mark Gentile. Hey, Mark. That we grew up going to school together, this Hamilton Township High School. And we started a band, and we would play at our high school for like parties or yearbook parties to raise money, and we would play covers. We were 16 or something, and I remember playing some yearbook show in the auditorium there at our high school, and it was a lot of fun. And we were playing like Runaway by Bon Jovi and Van Halen and Rat, and actually we played a song by a band called King Cobra, but nobody knew who it was. But so I was playing with I played with a band. I think we had a few names. We were called Attraction. We were called Casanova, and then I played with Mark, and then I started also playing with a friend of mine named Rick May, who unfortunately just recently passed away. He's a great friend of mine, a great mentor as far as music, an amazing drummer. He appears on a lot of my solo albums, actually. And we started playing music together. He got me involved in recording and going to Nashville, and he really taught me a lot. And then after that, for a few years of doing that kind of stuff, I met a bass player named Carl Gunther, who was an amazing bass player, really talented guy, and we wanted to put a band together. We were like 18, and we formed a band. He played with a guy named Drew Collins, a singer, that was in a band called Hard Liquor and Zeus, maybe, and a few other bands, and they played at the Alrosa and places like Park Avenue back in the day. And so Carl and I got together with Drew Collins, and we got a drummer named Scott Tennyson, who used to be in a band called Tamerlane. And we formed a band called the Bomb Squad, and we started playing at the Alrosa and Park Avenue, which later led to, we changed our name to Saddleback Shark, and we started writing originals and opening for national acts, and eventually the band started going in a different direction. We started getting heavier, and Carl left the band on good terms, and we got a bass player named Gil Graham, who played in a band called Wicked back in the day in Columbus, a great metal thrash band that would play like at Apollo's in the Alrosa. And then we brought aboard drummer John Homan, which he appears on some of my guitar albums as well, and he played in a band called Alcazar, which played at the Alrosa a lot. They did instrumental stuff, and
So was that when you first met John? You started
that's when I
working
first
with
met
him?
John. Yeah,
Okay.
Carl actually introduced me to John Homan. He's like, "Hey man, this guy's a great drummer. We got to get him in the band. You know, it's gonna make the band a lot more energetic, and he can play. He can keep up with what we're doing." And so we got John in the band, and Carl was still in the band, but John and I started going in more of a direction of heavier stuff. More, well, I started playing a 7-string guitar back then, and we started playing more stuff that was more like, I don't want to say Megadeth, but more heavier like Megadeth, Pantera, maybe a little Dream Theater, and so Carl's like, he wanted to do more of the funk stuff, which I can understand, being a bass player of his caliber. So Carl and I kept in touch, and Carl would play bass on my instrumental albums. So I recruited him for that, even though he wasn't in Saddleback Shark at the time. But that's how I met John, is through Carl, and we got John in the band, and eventually, we would headline the Alrosa all the time and play 2 or 3 nights a week, and opening for bands like Dawkins and Jackal and Wasp. And
So you were getting really, really dipped into the metal, right? Metal scene.
Yeah, for sure, definitely the metal stuff is what we all liked, and.
I listened to Magnitude 9. There's several albums that you guys actually cut, right?
Yeah, after Saddleback Shark, we actually cut an album with Saddleback Shark, and kind of Saddleback Shark disbanded, and after that I was more focused on doing my guitar albums, which I ended up getting a record deal in Japan, and I got a publisher, and I signed up with BMI, and once my albums got released in Japan, the guitar albums, I started going over there and playing in Japan, and doing like guitar clinics in Japan, and playing at the NAMM shows in California and Nashville. But the record label in Japan was like, well, the guitar stuff's really cool, but you should reach a wider audience than just guitar players, and they said, do you have a band? And so John and I started writing vocal songs, and John and I, the drummer, we were actually connected with a guy named David T. Chastain that used to own Leviathan Records, and he put us in contact with the singer. His name was Corey Brown, that sang for Magnitude 9, and then a bass player named Kevin Chown, who played with Ted Nugent, and he played with a band called Art Tension, and Edwin Dare from Toledo. So we put together Magnitude 9, and our first album, I paid for it all myself, and paid for all the recording, and I was going to try to get a deal with it, a record deal, or license it to a label. And our first album actually got picked up by Zero EMI in Japan, and we were on the same label as Judas Priest, and I think Megadeth was on that label just for Japan, and a bunch of other bands. And then we got a deal in Europe with a label called Inside Out, and that's the label now that has Dream Theater. Dream Theater we're on the same label as Dream Theater, and Devin Townsend and Symphony X, and so we ended up recording 3 albums, and they did better, of course, over in those territories like Japan and Brazil and Europe, because it's more of the melodic metal stuff. It's like Queensryche and Dream Theater, and but we had some success with those albums, and then I took a hiatus for a while. I didn't play out in clubs. Actually, my wife and I, we had 2 sons and 2 boys, and that was my main focus for a long time. Was I kind of got tired of playing out in clubs, and I think I got a little burnout too on writing albums, because I was just constantly writing albums and recording, and I kind of enjoyed being a dad, and I wanted to raise my boys. So I took some time off from playing out. I was still playing guitar all the time, and actually teaching, and once in a while doing session work and stuff like that. And that led me to now my boys are raised, and it's my wife and I, and here I am wanting to get out and play live again, and it's fun. And
you're doing it with some guys that you have a lot of history with.
A lot of history with the guys, and what I really enjoy, not only that is now that I'm playing out again, I see people that I used to play, the same clubs with. All of my musician friends. Columbus has so many great musicians, and of all genres, all styles, and when my band's not playing, I go see other bands. It's in because I want to see what everybody else is doing and have fun and sit there and watch them and drink beer and go out to dinner, and it's all about the Columbus has such a great music scene. Whether you're writing originals, or whether you're having fun in a cover band, or you're just an acoustic guitar player in a bar, Columbus is really impressive. And I've been I've been to L.A. so many times, and I've done work in Nashville, and I've been to Austin, and Columbus just has a great scene compared to so many other cities that I've been to. I don't really think people realize that, or hopefully they do realize that. But
well, I think there's post COVID, I feel a big momentum.
Yes.
Right. Like a surge, and it's part of the idea of the podcast that we're doing this episode. I've met so many cool people over the years, in that have Columbus roots, that have either stayed in Columbus, Ohio, and are doing music projects, or to your point, like look at in your case, you've gone literally around the world. Your music has taken you there, and it's brought you back, right?
Yeah, I mean,
but everyone's everyone's got a story that is so cool. Looking at you in Columbus, Ohio today, in Clubber Lang, I was floored at your history.
Well,
before you came over, I was like doing my homework a little bit, and Google Rob Johnson, and you're all everything you've just described. A lot of that's available online, and it's a treasure of material.
Well, thanks for that. And what I really enjoy about, some people are against streaming, and I can see how it's changed my income as far as when I would get advances for like a record in Japan or Europe, or you would get royalties for sales. My sales definitely, are not what they were compared to now with streaming, right? But then on the other hand, your music is out there to everybody in the world. I look at the streaming platforms as more promotion for bands, of course, to play live and stuff, and hopefully musicians get something changes and we get more for streaming revenue. But what's kind of helped me offset that is a lot of my, for example, instrumental songs, since they don't have vocals on them, they've been used before on like TV shows. Like in Japan, there was a big sports network playing them, similar to ESPN. Then I had a royalty statement one time saying that ESPN's played some of my songs in the background, and then some other TV shows have used my songs. And so when when you're with BMI and they collect that money for you, you get a check in the mail for $7,000, and you're like, well, wow, this is pretty cool, just for your song getting played on TV.
Surprise,
yeah. So I the streaming market is good, I think, for promotion and getting your name out there and your music out there. But I think there's other avenues for musicians to take as far as licensing your music and of course playing live and stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you were before you came back and focused on family for a while, did you play live shows in Japan when you were involved in some of the
actually the band Magnitude 9 never did. We had an offer to tour in Europe.
Okay.
And we turned it down. For one, we all had pretty good day jobs and families and girlfriends and kids. But one of the reasons too is so we were going to go over and do a 30-day tour, and we were going to be one of the opening bands for Dream Theater. It was going to be us and a band called Vandenplas, and then Dream Theater, and we were only going to do like maybe a 2 or 3 week tour, I think it was. And the record label said, well, we got you guys set up to go if you want to go, but you won't make a dime, you won't make any money. You're not going to be playing on your equipment. You're going to be playing on, you can bring your guitar, but you're going to be playing on the drummer's drums, and you're going to be playing 30 minutes. And they said, we'll pay for your hotel and your pizza, but every night, but you're not going to make a dime, and it's and you're only going to play 30 minutes at 6 o'clock at night, and we was like, is it really worth it, for us? And we didn't think it was worth it to do, some people would think that's crazy, but I didn't think it was worth it to do 2 or 3 week tour in Europe and make no money and have hardly any exposure. But as far as Japan goes, I'd go over there and do guitar clinics, and I played at their version in Tokyo was Musicians Institute, which is also in Hollywood. I played at the MI Institute in Tokyo and did some guitar clinics. I played at the Tokyo Music Fair. I would play several years at the NAMM show in Anaheim and Nashville. I have endorsements with Ibanez and DiMarzio pickups and SIT strings. So I would sometimes go out there and maybe, or there used to be an amplifier company called ADA. I don't know if you remember ADA. They had the ADA MP1 preamp, and guys like Paul Gilbert and Jason Becker were endorsed by him, and I was endorsed by him. And so the NAMM show would have me come out there and demonstrate their products and play for them. And then, then I would just do session work here and there. I'd play on people's albums or studio projects if they wanted me to do a guest solo or some chords then I was teaching. I do private lessons. I wrote a guitar column for 18 months for Guitar Magazine in Japan. And actually, coming back to Carl Gunther, I'm not very well at writing out music notes, and this was before we had all these programs to just plug your guitar in your computer like Guitar Pro and write the music out for you. But so Carl would help me write. I would write a guitar lesson. He would help me write the music notation out for it. Of course, I'd write the tab out, but I wasn't great at writing music notation out, and he would help me do that when I was writing that guitar column for 18 months, and that was fun. And I've always been involved in music in some way, even when I was raising my boys. But I remember when they got older, I remember recording guitars at my house for the Magnitude 9 albums, and when they were young, and they'd come in the room when you're recording. And so now, raised the kids for a while and back at it again now.
Are any of them guitar players?
Well, I never tried to force it on. Honestly, people's asked me that. They were always around guitars, but I never really tried to force it on them. I kind of wanted them to take their own path in life. And no, they love music, but they never, I don't think, had the interest to play guitar. Their interest was more into computer programming, and they're actually both in the Air Force, which they really enjoy, working for the Air Force on computer programs and stuff.
That's wild. That's awesome.
And engines. One of my sons works on the airplane engines. The other one works on the computer systems of the plane. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So as you're doing session work and doing what sounds like some instrument or some instructional type work as well, any of your students reach any heights of notoriety? And
yeah, I had some really good guitar students back in the day. There was a few guys from a band called Jacob's Dream. They came out of Grove City, and I think John and John, John Noble, and they both took guitar lessons off me at Carrier Music for just for a little while, off and on, and then I found out that they were in Jacob's Dream, which had a few albums released on Metal Blade Records, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. They used to take guitar lessons off me. My friend Will Newsome, he's in a band called the Martini Affair here in Columbus, great band.
I love Will.
Yeah, Will took a few lessons off me back in the day. Yeah, Will's a great guy, great guitar player, great songwriter. His band's really great. Yeah, I know there's some other people I can't really think of right now. But a lot of great guitar players around Columbus that went on to be in bands and record albums. So I really enjoyed teaching. I don't teach at a music store anymore right now, just the way the landscape of music stores has changed over the years. But I do like private lessons or Skype lessons and stuff like that. So, and sometimes I'll do guest solos on albums and stuff too for some of my friends and stuff. So
very good. Yeah. So, and I also noticed that you have some involvement with Technical Guitar Magazine.
Well, actually, Technical Guitar was actually a book that got released by a magazine company, a publisher called, I think it's called Shinko Music in Japan. There's a big magazine in Japan that I've been in called Young Guitar Magazine, and they also publish books. So they put together this book called Technical Guitar, which has just hundreds of guitar albums, guitar-based albums. Of course, Van Halen, all the Van Halen albums, all the Ozzy albums, all the Yngwie albums, the Joe Satriani, Steve Vai albums, and a lot of lesser-known players like myself that have released guitar albums. So I was fortunate enough to be in that book, which gives you a little your name out there to help people find your music and stuff. I was just glad to be in there with players like that. It was pretty cool. So that was nice of them to include me in that.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. We've got some lessons too that I think you have published that are helpful for guitarists.
Yeah, I would write. That part of that is some of the lessons I wrote for. I did them for a few guitar magazines in Japan. They would. I went up when the first time I went over there. They would have me write. 18-page guitar lesson for them, and then they would narrow it down and pick what they wanted to pick from it and put it in the magazine. So, Young Guitar Magazine had many of my lessons in it, and then there was a magazine called Guitar Mag. There's like 3 or 4 guitar magazines in Japan, and one called Guitar Magazine is the one that hired me to do an 18-month column for them. So that was a good run too. It was a lot of fun and kept me on my toes. Helped me keep learning. I mean, I'm still learning today. I don't think you can ever quit learning guitar. It's never ending for sure.
It's if you play guitar and you're taking it serious, you play every day. I know I do
every day, and there's
at some point.
Yes, I mean I'm addicted to it. And there's something you can always learn, whether it's just never ending. I mean, I'm not a great country player or a great jazz player, so I work on that. I'm not a lot of my background is more rock. I do learn a lot of classical stuff, and I dabble in the blues as well. But there's just, I think you're really closed-minded if you think you've ever got to the point where there's nothing to learn when you hear players like Alan Holdsworth or Al Di Meola or Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jeff Beck or Yngwie or Joe Satriani. I mean, there's just never ending. There's so many styles, and that's what makes guitar fun, because you can always learn something every day. Even if you learn a cover song, I keep learning stuff, so it's fun,
For sure. And I saw you with this fancy pick.
Oh yeah,
somewhere.
right.
And do you consistently use that? I mean,
yeah, it's a pick called a Swiss pick, and it looks like they call it Swiss pick because it looks like a piece of Swiss cheese because it's got holes in it, and I got a little endorsement with those guys. They sent me picks, and so basically it's like a Dunlop Jazz 3 pick, a mini. It's like a mini pick, the mini red and black Jazz 3 picks, and same shape, same. And I used gauge like 0.90 and 1.30, but basically it's just a pick with some little holes in it that kind of give you a little bit of grip. So they call it the Swiss pick, and I used the Jason Becker edition. Even though he doesn't really play guitar anymore since he has ALS, but they came out with a Jason Becker line of picks, and that's what I use, and they gave me an endorsement. So they're my favorite picks. I mean, I've played, being a guitar player, I've tried about everything, and they're the ones that work for me. So I actually, back in the day, I forgot to mention that I took a few lessons by mail with Jason Becker. If anybody, I'm sure there's guitar players out there that know who he is, but before he got sick with Lou Gehrig's disease, he released some amazing solo instrumental albums, which inspired my playing a lot for sure. And his first album was called Perpetual Burn, and I remember it had his address in there, and you could write to him. I mean, and I remember I was, 14 or 15, and I bought his album, and I wrote a letter to him and asked him questions. And a week or two later, I got a letter back from him, and he answered my questions, and I would write back and say, do you have any lessons for sale or licks or tabs? And he said, yeah, send me $20 and I'll write out some stuff for you and send you some lessons. So I would bother my grandma at the time, and she would give me $20, and I sent it to him a few times and took some lessons with him. And I remember too, back in the day, just a little nerdy guitar history. He told me, he said, hey Rob, this was through letter. We didn't talk on the phone really, but he said, I'm producing a new guy that Mike Varney discovered. Mike Varney's the guy that signed Yngwie and discovered all these players, Paul Gilbert and Jason Becker, etc. And he said, this new guy's really good. You're going to really be amazed by him. His name's Richie Kotzen, who plays in the Winery Dogs now. And,
oh my!
Yeah, so he turned me on to him,
great.
and
oh wow!
Yeah, so
yeah, I'm a fan there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's
Who's
awesome.
Not, though, right?
Yeah, but that's the first I ever heard of him. And Jason Becker co-produced his first album.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool indeed. Rob, it's interesting too that we're hanging out today, right?
Right.
You don't have long hair.
No, I cut my hair years ago, and that's what's funny is because I hadn't played out for so long. And the last time, when I did play out, I had the long metal hair for sure, and I had all grown up in my teenage years and stuff. And I cut it off years ago, and what made me do it is I remember, well, for one, I was just tired of messing with it. I'd always just put it back in a ponytail anyway, and I just got tired of it. But I remember being at Children's Hospital one day. I had to take one of my boys there for an eye appointment. He had to have eye surgery. He had a lazy eye muscle, blah, blah, blah. But I remember I went when my son was 2 or 3 years old, my son Evan. I had the real long hair, and I'm walking in Children's Hospital with him to see his doctor's appointment, and I look like a metal guy. And then I passed these 3 or 4 little girls. They're maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, and they were all going through cancer treatment, and they were all bald, and they were just like staring at me like, look at that guy. He's got all that hair, that long haired guy. And I remember telling my wife, Mandy, I just felt really. I think I was just ready to cut it anyway. I was just tired of messing with it, but that made me want to donate it. So I donated it to, I think it was called Locks for Love.
Yes.
So I mean, all my metal hair went for some good use.
What a big
and
word, man.
yeah, I mean, it went for some good use. And I got a letter from the little girl and her mother that it went for to help her out, and they made a wig for her so she didn't feel so out of place, going through chemo. And so I think everything happens for a reason. And sometimes I feel like growing it out again, but I'm too lazy. And I don't want to deal with it when it's like midway through over your ears and gets all poofy. And I don't want to. I like either long or short. I don't want the midway stage of. So I'm just lazy now. Just
You see my barber, right?
oh yeah. Hey, but that's easy, right? It's easy to take care of.
It's
Yeah.
so easy,
Hey,
man.
yeah. I mean, shoot. Look at Joe Satriani. He's
Same barber.
yeah. I mean, I still got hair. I just wear a hat. But like Joe Satriani just shaves his head, and that don't make you any less of a musician, right?
Yeah. Well, what a rock star you are.
Oh,
And with such a huge heart. That's cool.
well, thanks, man. I know a few of my other friends have done the same
Similar.
thing. Yeah, and I think it's just a good cause, and but it's funny when someone hasn't seen you for like 20 years or something, or 10 years ago, and they're like, "Is that you, Rob? I thought I recognized it, but I don't see all the long hair." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's me."
Oh man.
We're just all getting a little older, aren't we? But
I know that I am.
yeah, we feel it some days, right?
I know I do.
Yeah.
No, it's so for you, it's good to actually know all of your history as a solo artist and an instructor, and the bands that you were, when you met John, and you're coming back to Columbus, and you guys are together again and having fun with music again, right?
For sure.
With Clubber Lang, and it's sort of a big circle for you, and obviously a lot more to come in your musical career, but it's fun to know your background, and I appreciate you coming and hanging out today.
Oh, I love it, Lynn. It's great. I think you're doing a great thing for Columbus music. I think this podcast, when I saw that you were doing this podcast, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then, when I see the list of people that you've already done podcast interviews with, I'm like, well, I know those guys, and that's great to hear their backstories. And everybody has, and there's so many musicians in Columbus, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of them on your podcast show.
Yeah,
and
I'm lining up. They're lining up. It's fun.
So I look forward to it. Whenever I see that you have a new podcast ready to listen to, I mean, I think it's great. And of course, I got to give you a compliment. And my wife said too. You got a great podcast voice, Lynn. So kudos to you, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a day job.
Yeah.
And it keeps me pretty busy. So I can't promise a regular schedule with the podcast.
Right.
But lately it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
And I have some folks coming over the next couple of weeks, and there's some scheduled through June. So there's definitely some more room.
Great.
And there's definitely some interest, and it's something that, I think adds value to the community. And again, in your case, just knowing where you've been, and when we see you with Clubber Lang, there's a lot more to it. There's a big story there with you.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys. I mean, the only thing people see me on, probably other than playing out, is Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. I have all those accounts, or Twitter, and most of my friends on there are guitar players, and so they're interested in guitar stuff. But yeah, it's good to be. I don't really ever talk about it unless somebody asks me about it. But just good to be playing out again. One thing I forgot to mention too is a good friend of mine. Speaking of support here in Columbus, a good friend of mine named Michael McDowell. He started his own record label here in Columbus called Shred Guy Records, and a few years back, he went ahead and he said, Rob, I want to re-release some of your albums, and he put them out on CD. I mean, now they're just here in America, and but I got to give a good shout out to Mike, because he's done a lot too for the Columbus music community as far as going to see bands and putting musicians' albums out and stuff. And I thought it was cool that he was going to do a label, and now he's got like 40 or 50 releases on his record label, and one of my albums is on there, maybe a couple albums, I think. But I know my album Shred Works, he re-released. That was his plan, to put a best of compilation out. He put like a best of album out of me, which I thought was fun. It was cool when but starting a label here in Columbus, I mean, and he's still going strong. I think that's a great idea.
That's definitely good to know too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to put links to your music in the podcast
thank
description. So we'll work together to make sure we got all that in there.
Great.
Follow Rob Johnson on Facebook. He's got some funny stories that he posts, which,
I don't think I've ever grown up. I mean, you can't grow up, right? Come on, I can't be too serious. You know,
guilty pleasure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. It grows on you.
Well, like I said, like
We
I was telling
won't
you,
spoil the surprise.
yeah. I got so many friends of mine that send me stuff all the time, and I got to share it. It's fun. I like to laugh.
I've
So
also know, because I follow you and I follow Clubber Lang, of course, and there's some bleed over of the Facebook stories, and there's a common theme there. And it's good stuff. Not to spoil the surprise.
Yeah. I don't know if it is a surprise. Is it really?
like Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
On Facebook, I think that's really. You guys, there's a link to your band's
Facebook page and
the website. You guys have a website too.
yes, yeah. ClubberLangBandOhio.com is what that is. And then me, I'm just, if you search guitarist Rob Johnson on Facebook or Instagram, if you want to follow me, or guitarist Rob Johnson on TikTok or Twitter, I try to get on all the social. You gotta.
We'll find you.
Yeah,
and it's really good music.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it, man.
And go see and find Rob's links, and also check out Clubber Lang, man. I'd be glad you did.
Yeah, we're having fun. It's always good to see everybody. Sometimes I see people come up to me that like I said, I hadn't seen them band. I'd seen them play in a band years ago, and they'll come up and say, "Hey, I haven't seen you forever. Rob came out and seen you," and then they'll tell me what band they're in, and I'll go see their band. And there's so many great venues in Columbus. Actually, there's so many great clubs and venues for whether north side, east side, and there's so many bands now, which is cool. I think, like you said, with the COVID thing, everybody wanted to get out and play again, which everybody got tired of sitting at home, and so it's nice to see so many great bands and great musicians. I mean, I go see all my friends, and it's just a blast. So I'll be coming and seeing you play too. So
yeah, I do some acoustic stuff. We got some acoustic. Beth and I have at least one show coming up, which is fun, with Charles Valentino.
Cool.
Who fronts the band Days Gone By.
Okay.
And he also fronts a horn band with the Soul Satyr horn band.
And I heard they're a great band.
Fantastic show too. It's awesome.
Heard they're a great band. I want to give a shout out to. There's so many great bands in Columbus. Late Night Alibi, Radio City, Hot Lucy, Distorted Silence,
love these guys. Love
Phoenix Rising. Yeah, there's so many great bands. I could keep naming.
We can't leave anybody out, so we should probably stop.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many few. I apologize if I've left anybody out. I'm just rambling off the top of my head. Fusion. I love all these bands. There's so many great bands. Stadium 11. There's so many great players. So if I left anybody out, I apologize. There's just so many great bands. Oh, of course, the Lost Boys and Gypsy Kings. I could go on.
We both could.
We could go on. Yeah.
Go
see everybody.
Look, today we're talking to Rob Johnson, and Clubber Lang, with this episode, and his solo, and some of the bands that he's done in the past too, and then of course we're gonna wait and see what's coming in the future.
Yeah, I'm hoping. For my goals is continued what I'm doing. I'm just having fun playing out again, but I also like to do session work. So if anybody out there ever needs session work, whether I do it here or out of state, Nashville or somewhere, I'm available.
And they can hit you up on Facebook.
Yeah,
probably?
yeah, exactly.
Is that maybe the best way, like on a global platform,
Sure.
like where this thing's going to end up?
Yeah.
You don't want your personal phone number on there, do you?
Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I think most people have Facebook and Instagram these days, right?
much.
Twitter, but mainly I'm on, there. You got to have, I got to keep up with all my friends and family and see what's, movies are out and what new restaurants to go to and new bars to go to.
And who's playing where?
And who's playing where. Exactly. And that's how I found out about this podcast, was on Facebook. So
Very cool.
And hope more people find out about it, Lynn. And you're doing a great thing for the Columbus music community. So everybody appreciates it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's a lot of fun, and that's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
Little promotion, little shameless self promotion in regard to the people that do come and talk through their stories, and it's really really good to have that glimpse of someone when they're on stage and see everything that brought them there, or at least listen to an episode and get a better understanding. And in your case, it's very impressive.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I've listened to all your episodes so far, and I like hearing everybody's backstory. It's great, because you see, if I go see these musicians and I know them a little bit, you don't really know everybody. If I hear their backstory and all the bands they played in, what music they've done, where they came from, what inspired them, that's what I like about listening to these podcasts. It's really interesting. So
yeah, well, I guess the mission is getting addressed.
Yes.
Thanks for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, doing a great job.
And thanks again for making the time today.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's been fun.
It was great getting to know you better.
Yeah, great getting to know you too, Lynn. Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, we'll wrap it up for Rob Johnson here, and we'll be seeing your future and having a lot of fun here. Support local music, everyone.
Support local music for sure. Support art. Support local music. Support local business. Support everything, and get out there and have fun and go see a band and go out to dinner and go see all these bands. There's so many great bands, and everybody has a great time. So.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and be well.
Thank you, Lynn.
Bye-bye.